asking there's the recording, so it started now. We're also asking that you stay on mute and off camera during the presentation that we have, and then we will have time for questions at the end. For the questions, you're welcome to drop a question in the chat if you would like to, or you're also welcome to raise your hand, and then we can call on you, and you're welcome to come off of mute and ask your question that way as well. My name is Lisa Wiedemann. I'm a community affairs specialist with the MPCA, and we're going to talk about the 3M Cottage Grove draft NPDES wastewater permit this evening. And I think we'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes before we get started. All right, we're at 6:02. I see a few folks are still coming in, but I think we're close to a critical mass here. So again, just one more time for the folks that are joining, thank you for making the time to be here tonight. I really appreciate it. We're here to discuss the 3M Cottage Grove draft NPDES SDS wastewater permit. My name is Lisa Wiedemann. I'm a community affairs specialist with the MPCA. This meeting is being recorded, and we are going to have a short presentation, and we will hold questions until the end. There should be plenty of time for a Q&A after the presentation. As we go through the presentation, I just ask that you stay on mute and off camera. And then when we're ready for questions, you are welcome to drop your questions in the chat. You're also welcome to use the raise hand feature, and we can call on you that way. With that, I will turn it over to Teresa.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for starting us off, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here tonight. So we will be discussing the 3M Cottage Grove draft NPDES SDS permit, the wastewater permit that is currently out on public notice. It's out on its second public notice. Go ahead and flip it to the next slide, please, Lisa. And I'll just say too, before I get going here, I'll introduce myself very quickly. I'm Teresa Haugen. I'm the Water and Mining Section Manager at the Pollution Control Agency. And within my section are the staff that wrote the permit and do the compliance and enforcement behind this permit. But what we'll be specifically talking about here today, you can see on this slide, we are going to just do a very quick facility overview. I'll briefly talk about the draft changes to the permit that brought it to a second public notice period. Talk about the public comment period itself, a little bit of detail there on the schedule and whatnot, and then talk about an effective public comment. You know, what we look for and what is helpful to us if you are going to submit a comment to us. And then, as Lisa had mentioned, a Q&A, question and answer session at the end, and we have a number of technical experts that helped develop the permit on this call that can help answer questions if you have them. So here on this slide is just a little bit on the background of the facility, the 3M Cottage Grove facility, and just a very high level permit overview. The 3M Cottage Grove facility manufactures a diverse group of products, including PFAS. There are 3 3M facilities in the United States that still manufacture PFAS. The Cottage Grove facility is one of them. The others exist in Cordova, Illinois, and Decatur, Alabama. The wastewater treated at this facility is created from a variety of sources. There's production wastewater, pilot testing production facilities, sanitary wastewater, non-contact cooling water, stormwater, contaminated groundwater, water from LSP Cottage Grove, LP, the leachate from the SKB Rosemount landfill, and incinerator decommissioning waters. This draft water quality permit includes new or lower discharge limits for 5 PFAS compounds, 7 heavy metals, 55 semi-volatile or volatile organics, whole effluent toxicity, ammonia, and phosphorus. And this new drafted permit also adds additional benefits in that there's new treatment and technology protective of human health. All the monitoring with this newly issued permit will be public via Echo at EPA and MPCA's data browser. So that's new. Before it was all in paper format, but now it's going to be available electronically. And there will be a Mississippi River characterization report that will be required as part of this permit every 5 years. So just very quickly, some of the changes that we made to the draft permit as part of the first public comment period, which occurred this past summer, July 1st of 2024 through August 30th of 2024. So as a result of that first public comment period, we received 104 comments from a variety of different parties, including EPA, 3M, different individuals, business or trade associations, units of government, community, and civic organizations. We also did receive 1 contested case hearing request from 3M as part of that first public notice period. And as a result of some of the comments that we received, we did make some changes to the permit, and the changes were substantial enough where we were required to renotice the permit. So that is what is occurring right now. The permit is open for public comment currently. It began December 18th and it's open through February 3rd. The draft permit and the documents that are open to comment, I'll speak to them a little bit more later on the presentation, but they're available online. And with the draft permit, there's a red line version posted, and that you can see the changes, the exact changes that were made to the permit from the first time it was public notice. So the substantive permit changes that led us to a second public notice period are listed right here on this slide. So we did make a couple changes to the compliance schedule that was in the first public notice permit. We decided to make a couple of extensions. We did extend the compliance date for the construction of the PFAS treatment system, that construction completion date, by 1 month. So it's now in the permit is April 30th, 2025. And the initiation of operation of the PFAS wastewater treatment system, which is the system that they're building to treat the wastewater for PFAS, needs to meet limits by April 30th of 2027. So we extended it by 4 months to allow the facility or 3M to stabilize, optimize, and test the system. However, there are interim limits in effect in the permit issuance until that compliance is attained and due at that deadline of April 30th, 2027. Also, there are less stringent water quality-based effluent limits for PFAS parameters in the permit. This is due to a correction that we needed to make to the site-specific criteria. There was an error that we made when we originally calculated the site-specific criteria. This was pointed out to us during the public comment period. So in regards to use of the regression of order of statistics. So this led to a slight change in the PFAS water quality-based effluent limit parameters. So they're slightly less stringent than what they were during the first public notice period. So we are opening it up to comment again. So here on this slide is just a little bit of information in regards to the site-specific criteria. We did recalculate the site-specific criteria as part of the second notice, as just briefly mentioned on the last slide. The site-specific criteria that apply to the 3M Cottage Grove facility and their discharge applied in the Mississippi River, as you can see here in the blue on the slide, mile 820 of the river through mile 812. These numbers, the site-specific criteria, were calculated from data and sampling that took place in 2021. That data, that sampling went into a report that was finalized in June of 2023. It's the most recent data that we had, but it was robust enough to create PFAS, water quality-based effluent limits, site-specific criteria and water quality-based effluent limits for 6 different PFAS parameters. And again, we did recalculate the site-specific criteria as part of going through the comment and finding the error, and this led to water quality-based effluent limit corrections as well. And there's more detail on that in an upcoming slide. So here are the changes that were made to the PFAS site-specific criteria. So that blue stretch on the Mississippi River, you can see here the numbers in the surface water and the fish tissue, and that they have changed. They have gone up, or they've become less stringent. However, I'll point out that these changes are small. The numbers you're looking at here on the screen are nanograms per liter, which is equivalent to parts per trillion. So talking very, very small numbers here. And when you're looking at these numbers, something that is helpful, I think, to think about when you're keeping scale in mind is that, for example, if you look at the top 3 compounds, around roughly 2 parts per trillion. 2 parts per trillion is equivalent to about 1 drop in 10 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So very, very small numbers here that we're working with. However, again, when we recalculated the criteria, you can see they are less stringent. So opening this back up to public comment, site-specific criteria is also open to comment along with the permit. On this slide here, we're showing the changes made to the PFAS water quality-based effluent limits, and these changes were made to the limits that apply to the 2 surface discharge stations, SD001 and SD002. The dark blue color on the slide here, those are changes that these were remain the same from the first public comment period. No changes made to the dark blue. The light blue highlights where the changes were made. So recalculated the site-specific criteria, which did lead to slightly higher water quality-based effluent limits. This recalculation did result in the removal of the limits for PFHXA at both SD001 and SD002, and it did increase the limits for the remaining 5 PFAS parameters. However, the updated limits for PFHXS, PFOA, and PFOS still remain below detection and are therefore the compliance limits of 2.1 nanograms per liter and 2.2 nanograms per liter. So those still apply. Some more information on changes to the permit. And the next handful of slides will cover changes made to the permit, just highlighting them and calling them to your attention. So here on this slide, we note that we did make a change to 37 of the PFAS parameters that are now being monitored annually versus monthly at SD001 and SD002. We also refined the application of the annual average reporting limit of 4 nanograms per liter from all monitoring stations to stations SD001, SD002, SD003, SD stands for surface discharge, and the applicable non-stormwater waste stream stations, so WS001 through 4, and then 006 through 007. We also made a change to the non-target analysis. It is required in all monitoring stations except for WS 001 through 007. And the reason we made these changes was due to comment that we received from 3M. That's why 3M is in parentheses after the bullets here on the slide. The laboratory constraints and limitations that exist both internal and externally, combined with the frequent monitoring of 80 more easily measurable PFAS, combined with less frequent monitoring of the additional 37. This will give us the data that we currently need to make the decisions that we need to make to protect human health. So here on this slide, just covering some more changes made to the permit. We did add a requirement to install flow monitoring equipment to monitor the flow of each process wastewater stream internally in the facility prior to any commingling. This will provide flow information in the next permit application for reissuance. And this change came in at the request of EPA. There are added requirements to submit progress reports for all the compliance schedule requirements with deadlines in the permit that extend more than 1 year past the permit issuance. And this was a change made in response to a comment we received from EPA. And then we revised the construction milestone compliance schedule using the permittee's recommended dates. It accounts for the progress that they have made since the previous public notice of the draft permit. So here on this slide, just covering other permit changes that we have made since the first public notice period. So just more changes. Added 2 new stormwater monitoring stations at the request of 3M in their public comment. We added acute whole effluent toxicity testing and a limit. This is in addition to the chronic wet testing that was in the first public notice version of the permit due to anti-backsliding. And this came in as part of EPA's public comment to us. We also added technology-based effluent limits to SD 001 based on updates to 40 CFR 414, the organic chemicals, plastics, and synthetic fiber effluent guidelines, to now include mass limits with the concentration limits that previously existed in the permit at EPA's public comment request. We also added quarterly monitoring for total aluminum, boron, arsenic, and cobalt at surface discharge station 001 at EPA's request. And then we also corrected the limits and monitoring section so that the cyanide limits at surface discharge station 1 are 1,200 micrograms per liter as a daily maximum and 420 micrograms per liter as a calendar month average. They were unintentionally switched in the first version of the public notice permit. Some more changes made to the permit since the first public notice period. We added some additional requirements to the permittee annual public meeting that's required of 3M. This came in via a public comment we received. The meeting is now required to begin between 6 and 7 p.m. and the permittee 3M must notify East Metro area through channels such as newsletters. They need to record the meeting and then send the presentation information to the MPCA no later than 1 week prior to the meeting beginning. We also added the following language that you can see here on the slide to the requirement for quality assurance and quality control verification for the use of compositing equipment when working with composited PFAS samples. So the permit is required to demonstrate that significant analyte loss is not occurring in the composited samples by comparing data from a 24-hour flow proportional composite sample to data from mathematically flow-weighted sets of 24 grab samples. And this slide here, further changes made to the permit that you will see if you take a look at it. We did remove some figures from the draft permit that are subject to change based on construction. However, they will remain the same in the permit fact sheet. So, for example, stormwater map, locations of waste stream stations in the process flow, and some flow schematics for concentrate flow from building 150, 151 RO treatment, RO reject tanks to 9 treatment, LGAC to 9 vessels, and the non-contact cooling water industrial stormwater groundwater system. So, in short, those figures have been removed from the draft permit, but again, they'll remain in the permit fact sheet. There were some station name clarifications made, came in at the public comment request of 3M. We replaced the wastewater treatment system process flow diagram with an updated version. We changed some annual report due dates from March 31st to April 30th. We changed requirements to add PFAS compounds detected during non-targeted analysis to the PFAS analysis list from immediately upon receipt of the non-targeted analysis results to no later than the next scheduled sampling event after an analytical method becomes available, if a method is not currently in existence for the new PFAS compounds. So these changes were made at the request of 3M and their public comments we received. Okay, this is the last slide on changes made to the permit. So we modified the PFAS surface water monitoring protocol, and that's an appendix to the permit. So it's just based on 3M comment and then also on some of our own internal comment. And then we added surface water sampling location to the map based on a public comment, as you can see here on the slide. All right, we are going to shift gears here now and talk about the public comment period and what we're looking for in an effective public comment. So here on this slide, you can see the QR code for where to go. You can take a picture of it with your phone. It works through the monitor. If you'd like to do that, it'll take you right to the public comment webpage. Otherwise, you could Google MPCA 3M wastewater permit, and it should pop up and get you there as well. The exact webpage link is also listed here. So I'll just pause for a moment here so that you can take a picture of this if you'd like, or write down the information. And then on the next slide, we have listed the materials that are currently open for notice. So there's the public notice document summary. It will go over the changes made to the permit, description of the permit, different actions you can take, timelines, and other instruction that you would need if you're going to comment on the public notice permit. There's the draft permit. The entire permit is open to comment. So it's not just the changes being made. We did open the entire permit up to comment again. So you're welcome to comment on any part of the permit. And again, it's redlined, so you can see the changes that were made from the first time the permit was public notice. We also have the fact sheet that's open for public comment. And we also have site-specific criteria that is open for comment again as well. So here are some tips for effective comments. So when you are commenting to us, be sure to tell the agency who you are and what your interests are in the permit. Offer specific criticisms of the permit. If you do have criticisms of the facility's operation or the permit, be sure to just have details to support your points. That's very helpful. If you can offer alternatives to items you don't agree with, that's very helpful as well. If you have supporting information, feel free to attach that and submit it to us. If you're aware of other sources of concern in the area, you can inform us of that information as well. And then we also ask that you provide your contact information so that we can respond to your public comment. And I will just add too that a comment is not a vote. So one well-written and thoughtful comment is more impactful than 100 comments that are general statements of support or opposition. So just having a well-written, thoughtful comment, following these tips on the slide here is very helpful. So what do we do with comments that we receive during the public notice? We read all of the comments and we evaluate each comment or concern raised. Every comment does become a part of the permit record, so it's public and it's out there for everyone else to see. We do put together a formal response for every comment we receive. So you will either get an individual response, or if there's if things are grouped, if they come in by a certain theme, we may group them by topic and respond by topic. Comments may or may not result in a permit revision, but we'll let you know that in the response to comment. And then we, of course, fix any errors or gaps in the draft permit. And if the changes are substantial enough, we will republic notice the permit so that it's open for comment again, just like we're doing right now. So here on this slide, just some key dates. December 18th, again, is when the permit went out for its second public notice. We did extend it to a 45-day public comment period. They're normally only 30 days, but we did extend it to 45 days to account for the holidays, give folks a little extra time to review and comment. We're here January 22nd with the virtual public information session. And then the comment period will close on February 3rd. And I'll just call out too, if you submitted a comment during the first public comment period, your comment has been accepted and you don't need to resubmit the same comment again. And then following the public comment period, so post February 2025, we'll review and respond to the public comments and work towards finalization of the permit. And that brings us to the end of the formal presentation. So we can now transition into the question and answer session.
I'll just remind folks you're welcome to either drop your question into the chat. You're also welcome to raise your hand and we'll make a queue and call on you. You're welcome to come off mute and vocalize your question that way.
And I'll just add too, for MPCA technical folks that are on the call here, if you are going to help respond to a question, if you could just introduce yourself before responding, that would be helpful. Thank you.
I don't see any questions in the chat yet. Hannah, could you just confirm that I'm seeing the right chat and there aren't any questions at this time?
Yep. There are no
All right.
messages to the hosts either.
Okay, great. I also don't see any hands raised at this time. Here we go. I see a question in the chat. All right, so the first question is, what do these numbers mean in capacity of the river holistically? How many other companies have permits to put a drop into the large swimming pool? Are southern states notified of these conversations?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I can say this is the first permit going out with PFAS limits in it. So it is the first of its kind. We do have our PFAS monitoring plan and strategy, of which, as we work on reissuing permits. We'll be putting PFAS monitoring and requirement source reduction into permits where we believe PFAS to be a concern. And then as we learn of information, we'll share that out. Here. I'm just trying to think if I have anything to add to that. I don't know if I fully answered your question. Just rereading it. Yes, so this is the first permit again with the PFAS limits. I would have to go and check to see how many we've issued that have PFAS monitoring in it to see if PFAS is present or not. And then as far as notifying southern states of these conversations, I can't speak to that or specific action that we've taken to notify southern states. However, they're able to sign up for our GOV delivery and other announcements as any other entity is able to. But if that's something, you know, where you want to make sure that that's being done, or you want a further answer, that would be a great public comment to submit to us. And we could respond more fully that way.
Great. Don't see any other questions in the chat. And still don't see any hands raised. Let's go ahead and give it a few more minutes here and see if anything else comes through. Oh, I see a question popped up in the chat. Which fish are tested for samples? That's a good question. Let's see.
And I wonder, you know, and I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I'm wondering if Scott or Laura, if either of them know the answer to that one.
Yeah, let's see. Scott or Laura, would you like to come off mute? And I'm kind of guessing here, but I think this question is sort of like which fish species, and then maybe any other information you have about sizes or quantities.
Yeah, hi, I'm Laura Lyle. I worked on the site-specific criteria. Right off the top of my head, the exact numbers and whatnot, I don't know that I could tell you, but we go out and sample for, I mean, all sorts of stuff. There were, you know, bluegill, bass. Those are what are coming to mind. I'd have to dig a little to find the exact species, but I can do that while the rest of the questions are being answered. Here we go. Hold on. We've got common carp, freshwater drum, smallmouth bass, white bass, bluegill sunfish, black crappie, walleye, emerald shiner, gizzard shad. That's what was targeted in the characterization study that 3M completed in the Mississippi.
And these were the fish that we agreed to monitor in agreement with DNR, correct, Laura?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for answering that on the fly, Laura.
Yeah, thank you.
There's another question in the chat. Some of the monitoring and mitigation that we've mentioned has been labeled as new technology. Is there any comparable treatment utilizing this technology currently in use in the United States? Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. And in regards to the wastewater treatment system that 3M is currently constructing, it is the first of its kind that we're aware of. If Scott is online and if he wants to jump in, he could speak to this in a little bit more detail. But the wastewater treatment system is the first of its kind being built in the country, again, to our awareness.
So hi, my name is Scott Kaiser. I'm an engineer at the Pollution Control Agency. And the answer to Whether these technologies are new is kind of yes and no. The technologies, each individual technology that is being used at this site to treat PFAS, they're actually decade-old technologies like granular activated carbon, ion exchange, reverse osmosis, media filtration. These are well-tested technologies that engineers have been using for 40 years, at least. What is new is how 3M is sequencing these technologies to remove PFAS to very low levels. And that is what is innovative about their treatment system. And one of the advancements that makes their site so different compared to other wastewater treatment systems that you conventionally think of.
Thank you, Scott.
Great. We don't have any other questions in the chat at this time. Oh, but we'll give it a minute. I see another one popped in. Is traditional ecological knowledge, TEK, included in your formulas for policy in rural language? We have the right and want to eat healthy fish and other traditional foods from the river. We need clean water to do that. Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. And in specifically in regards to, the NPDES permit that we're here talking about today, I'm not aware of any formulas for policy and rule language in regards to traditional ecological knowledge, but this would be another great topic or area to submit a comment to on to us and tell us more about what you're thinking. If you have any ideas, that'd be very helpful. We'd be very interested in seeing that.
Not seeing anything else come through. Go ahead and scan our participant list here one more time. And scan the chat as well. And I don't see anything else. Right. What do you think? Should we give it one more minute here? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. One last question. The permit calls for a 5-year review. I forgot what the formal name for it was. Apologies, but why is it 5 years? Is that because the data will be reviewed so consistently you will know flow numbers in real time? So I think the question is sort of like, why a 5-year review?
I'm trying to think of what this was. I wonder if this was in relation to the non-targeted analysis or the Mississippi River characterization study. Both those are per permit term. So for 5 years, the permit term is 5 years. So it was set at a 5-year review. If I'm thinking of what it is that you're asking in your question here.
Yes, the characterization study.
Okay. Yeah, so I can take an initial I can put out an initial answer here, and then others on the call here that know more can chime in. But the characterization study is once every 5 years. It's a very thorough study. It looks at the water, the fish, the sediment, and does a full characterization. So it's a very large and intense study with a large amount of data that comes in. And the amount of time that it takes to do that study and review and analyze that study, and then follow up with recommendations takes about 5 years to do. So that's why that timeline was put in there, and it syncs up with the timeline of the permit and when the permit will expire. So we should have that data and be able to do that analysis come the next reissuance of the permit, and then adjust, add new permit requirements as need be based on what we find in that characterization study. There are others on the line though. If you have anything to add, or if I didn't get anything quite right there, please chime in.
All right. And then I do see the same person who asked about TEK, traditional ecological knowledge, also mentioned that we need that included in the permit language and policy. And that would make a great public comment. Definitely worth submitting a comment there.
Yes, agreed. Thanks, Lisa.
One more question did pop in. Will the unnamed creek where waste is being dumped into the river be given a respectful name?
That's a good question. And I don't know the answer off the top of my head there, but what I do know is that the water body classification of that unnamed creek, they're by default just named unnamed waters because there are a number of them in the state. However, if there's a certain assessment done on them, they sometimes can be renamed, but it's by default and it comes from state rule. You could certainly submit a comment on that and ask, if that name can be changed and what the process is there. But my understanding is it's named an unnamed creek by default from state rule, essentially. If there are others online that have more to add there, please jump in.
In my past experience, I'm pretty sure that the DNR, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, typically names water bodies. But again, I'm not sure about the unnamed creek. But again, good. That would be a good comment.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be outside of the scope of the NPDES permit, but certainly submit it and we'll consider it.
All right. I think that's it.
Did we
Oh,
miss a
let's
comment, Lisa?
yeah, let's see. I have not heard a response to my first comment. I think your first comment was which fish are tested for samples. And I believe Laura answered that. If there was another, let's see, I'm just not sure. Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure which comment this is about. Have not heard a response to my first comment yet. Are they still working on it? Would
Do you want me
you,
to list them again, Lisa?
that would be great. I'm also wondering, oh, this was a comment on the first draft permit. Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. Okay, not about the question in this meeting. So someone has said they submitted a comment on the first draft of the permit, and they have not gotten a response to that comment yet. Are we, the MPCA, still working on it?
We have not officially responded to any comments yet, so we'll respond to all comments we received during the first public notice period and the second public notice period at the same time. So haven't sent out any responses yet. We're still working on that.
Do we have a clear timeline on when that could be expected? I know this comment period is open until February 3rd, and I know it takes some time to respond thoughtfully to comments.
Yeah, that's a good question, Lisa. We don't have a timeline defined yet. It's hard to know for sure how long it'll take until we see how many comments we get in, what kind of comments and different requests that we get in that can dictate the timeline. So, but we'll be working on it as quickly as we can and working towards final issuance of this permit as quickly as we can. It's a priority for us here at the agency.
All right. All right, well, thanks everyone for your questions. Teresa, I'll pass it to you to close.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I see there's just one last comment in there. Walleye and other fish are traditional food and important to Dakota and Ojibwe ways of life. Thank you for that comment. And thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. I know it's the evening and it's cutting into personal time and family time and all different kinds of things going on, but appreciate you taking the time to listen, ask questions. And if you have comments, please do submit them. They're very helpful to us. We take them all very seriously. And just thank you again for being here with us tonight.